Hey everybody, we're back and we are just about to finish up with linear equations. We only have a few more lessons and I think that's going to almost take us all the way to the end of the year. Pretty crazy. We're about done. So today is all about writing linear equations from a jumbled up equation. I'm actually going to skip this slide. We're going to go right into this right here. Today should be a lesson that shouldn't be too tough, but can be a little tough if you don't have any prior knowledge of it. So basically, in less fancier words, we can say that writing slope-intercept form, how do you write it from a jumbled up equation? And that's what we're doing. So we're going to take a look at it right now. So we're going to always start with a little bit of review. If I said, what is the equation of this line? What would you say? Well, you'd say you need two things. One, you need to know what slope-intercept form is, which is y equals mx plus b. And the second thing you need to know is what are the two things you need to know to be able to solve the slope-intercept form of a line. And you should be able to just yell this from the mountaintops because you know it. It is going to be slope. And it's going to be where it hits on the y-intercept. That's the only two things you know. Need to know in life. There's more things in life you need to know. But we always start with the y-intercept. Super easy. That one's going to be 3. And then what's the slope? Well, we had this point right here. I'm looking very carefully. Can you see my cursor right there? There's another point. So isn't that just rise over run? Do you see how it's going to be a negative? See how that negative slope? You should already tell me that. You say, Mr. Sharp, this is very similar to the other one. I say, yeah, but it's good practice. It's good practice. Rise over run. It's going to be 2 over 1. That's going to be a negative because it's a negative slope. That goes to the left. It's negative. And you'd say this is y equals, slope is negative 2x plus 3. You'd say, okay, Mr. Schreiber, you're done. Let's move on. I got this. Well, what if I told you, couldn't we change this? And is this still correct if I was to add 2x on both sides? That would give you y equals 2x equals 3. Oops, I'm sorry. No, not equals, Mr. Schreiber, not equals. Y plus 2x equals 3. And the answer is, yeah, that's still right? We didn't change anything. This is still the same as this, but this is not in y equals mx plus b form. We could also do this. We could take away 3, couldn't we? Could take away 3 on both sides. We could do that. I don't know why you would, but then we have y, and this is getting really diagonal. I'm guessing getting really diagonal. You could do that, but now there's just 0 over here. But this is still technically right. It's still technically right. The problem with this is it's not in y equals mx plus b form. And that is today's lesson. We're going to have problems like this that you have to change and move into y equals mx plus b form. And once you do a few of these, you'll get it and you'll be great. Let's go through it right now. So, the first problem says that write the following equation into slope-intercept form, then state its slope and its y-intercept. And that is all we're doing today. So you got to remember that this is the form we want. And guys, this almost looks right, doesn't it? Doesn't it almost look like it's y equals mx plus b? It does, doesn't it? It looks really, really close. But what is the only thing that is wrong is that y is not by itself. Y needs to be by itself. It's got to be by itself. And guys, that's the entire lesson today. Is how can you get y to be by itself? Well, if you take a look here, if I said you need to solve the first one, what is getting in the way of y? And this is the part where I know students may struggle a little bit. What is getting in the way of y? Well, that 8 is, right? How do you get rid of that 8? You don't take away 8. You're going to divide by 8. Now, here's the tough part. If I divide, look at my cursor. If I divide this side by 8, I have to divide everything on this side by 8. I'm not going to just divide this 16 divided by 8. I'm not going to just divide 4x divided by 8 because if I divide this entire side, think of it like a balance beam. Look at my hands. It's like a balance beam. If I divide this entire side by 8, I got to divide this side completely by 8. That was a weird example. I know. That was a weird example. So 4x divided by 8 is going to give you 4 over 8, which is equal to 1/2, isn't it? And then that's a negative 16 or a minus. So 16 divided by 8 is going to be, that'll give you a minus 2. And then that here, this is now in y equals mx plus b form. So that is, slope is going to be 1/2. We can call that m. And y-intercept is negative 2. So that's your answer. This is your answer. I'm going to say order, bring to front. Let's take on another one. Let's take on this problem right here. Again, if I said you need to find slope-intercept form, we don't want that -5. I still like using the line. If you ever wonder, like, this line's really annoying, it's bothering me, I would say I like using that line right there just for these problems. I mean, I really do. And we're dividing everything on this side by -5. So 35, look at my cursor, 35 divided by that -5 is going to be -7x. And then 10 divided by -5 is a -2. If you want to make that plus a negative, that's not wrong. You can do that. So this is going to be our slope-intercept form. And then on the worksheet today, not the worksheet, but your problems you're going to have to do, I want to know what your slope is. And slope, m equals -7, and your y-intercept is -2. You're going to have to do both. That's a bad looking -2. Let's change that up. Okay, let's try one more. And what I'd like you to do on this one, see if you can try this one out your own. And we may only do just can you do this one? Well, take a look here. The first thing I realize is I'm just really used to y being on the left-hand side. So I'm going to tell you a trick with this one. I did this on purpose. I put the y on the right-hand side. It doesn't really matter. But when you do write this correctly, you do want to have, it's good, which sounds terrible. It's called like I call it math grammar, which is like, sounds like the two worst things ever put together. But it's kind of nice having the y on the left-hand side. That's kind of what you want. So for this one, what am I going to do? I'm going to get y by itself. I'm not going to move. What I'm not going to do, I'm going to wait until the very end. I'm not going to take all this stuff here and move it to the right and take all this stuff and move it to the left. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to get y by itself. I'm going to divide by -6. I'm going to divide this side by -6. And notice here that these numbers are not going to come out super perfect, and that's okay. So the y doesn't magically jump over here. It's still over here, isn't it? These cross out, and then that is going to be -2 divided by -6 is going to be a +1/3 when I put that in simplest form. And then that is going to be a positive 14/6. Sorry, this is an x here. And then here, I'm just going to move this around so I have this in simplest form. I'm going to divide those. So divided by 2, both of those go into 2, so that's going to be 7/3. And do you see how this is just doesn't look perfect, doesn't look great? But I didn't move a whole lot of things around. What I can do now is, now that this is in basically simplest form, where y is by itself, let's just move y over here. And y equals 1/3 x plus, gosh darn it, do you see this right here? Messed up again. I'm going to have to go back and edit my whole video to make sure this is good. That's okay. I can do that. I'm learning, and learning is power. You guys can see here that we have, we've just moved this around. Same exact thing, but now y is on the left-hand side. And that the slope is equal to 1/3. And the y-intercept is 7/3. Yep. And all these are going to be right. So we're going to do just a few more that look just a little bit different. And yeah, let's get started. If you guys want to try this out on your own, you can. That's perfectly fine. But the key is, what I don't want to see is you can't take this -6 and just put the -6 over there. That's not really how this works. It's not how an equation works. What we can do is, I'm a huge fan of, I like to move the x's over first. You don't have to. You can take +6 on both sides first. It's up to you. The one thing I just don't want you to do is, I don't want you guys get in the habit of doing 2 operations in one. I don't want to see you taking -2x and then adding 6 at the same time. I just don't want to see that. It's not good math practice, and it's not going to make you a better math student. and your algebra teachers next year and your algebra 2 teachers in high school and in calculus are going to come back and yell at me, which would not be good. So this goes away, and now it's on this side, but I still have a y minus 6. That's still there. And then after that, I'm just going to add 6 on both sides. And now you guys can see I have y now by itself. It's negative 2x plus 6. And again, take a look. It's not like I take the 2x and just put it over here. You can't do that. You have to use the operations that we have learned for equations to make this work. You can't just take this negative 6 and make it negative 6 over there. You have to add 6 on both sides. So the answer is this is going to be the slope-intercept form, and you can say that the slope is equal to negative 2, and the y-intercept is a positive 6. This is also going to be correct. And that's it for that one. Let's go on to the next one. Take a look here, see if you can solve it on your own. If not, you're welcome to work with me. I'm a huge fan of pausing the video to make sure that you understand it. Best way to get better is to do these on your own and then come back in and check to see if you got the same answer as me. So if I want to get, again, what am I trying to do here? I'm not just moving random things over. And how do you know what to move over? I want you to focus on this question. And the question is, how do you get y by itself? If you want to know what slope-intercept form is, y is always by itself. So for me, the question I ask myself is, what is getting in the way of y? What are the things I have to move over to get y by itself? What are the things getting in the way? Well, I don't want this 5x over here, so I'm going to take away 5x on both sides. But I still have this 4y. So that makes that a negative 5x, and that's a positive 8. Again, I can't add those together. You can't make that a 3x. Can't make that a 3x because these are not like terms. These are not like terms. They don't like each other. And then from here, now we can divide by 4 on both sides. And then from here, we say, okay, well, that's going to be a negative 5 over 4x. And then 8 divided by 4 is going to be a positive 2. And guys, this is going to be your slope-intercept form, where m equals negative 5 over 4 and b equals, okay, get this out of here, thank you, equals 2. I'm going to plug in my computer. One of those moments, plug it in. I thought it's right here, and I just didn't plug it in. I may have to edit that out. I'm officially learning how to be a super awesome editor. You guys are already good with your TikTok videos and everything, but I'm getting better. I'm getting there. It's happening. Okay. We're going to do 2 more. We're going to do 2 more together, guys. Again, I'm a huge fan of you guys trying these problems out on your own. Tells me that you really understand it. I, again, like to have the line. Helps me to see it better. And the question you're asking yourself, if you're still a little confused with this, is how do you get y by itself? What's the first thing we're going to get rid of? And we're going to get rid of this minus 2x. I don't want that over there. So that goes away, but you still have a negative 3y. That's not a 3y, that's a negative 3y. You know, it's the same as this. I always like to kind of start by making it look, you know, I put the negative 2x here because I'm starting to form it to make it look y into y equals mx plus b. You don't have to do that. I think it does help. And then from here, we're going to divide by negative 3 and divide everything here by a negative 3. And now we have slope-intercept form. Negative 2 divided by negative 3 is going to be a positive 2/3 because a negative divided by a negative is positive. And then 7 divided by a negative 3 is negative 7 over 3. I would leave it like this. You mostly don't use mixed numbers. If you guys remember way back in the day, I think it was like in October, you don't really use mixed numbers at all in equations. You can use mixed numbers in life, but you don't really use them that much when you work with equations. So slope here is 2/3. My mouse is catching a little bit. Is 2/3. And your y-intercept is negative 7 over 3. Guys, we're going to do one more together. Let's see. Should we take on this one? Let's take on this one. This is the one we're going to do. I like it. Make your line. Again, we want to get y by itself. What's the first thing getting in the way of y? We're going to take away 5x on both sides. Let's get rid of that 5x. That's the first thing we're always going to do to get rid of, to get y by itself. So that goes away. We still have a 6y. So that's going to be 6y equals negative 5x. That's still a positive 24. Remember, big mistake. You don't ever want to add or subtract those. Those are not like terms. You can't just add those together. And we're just going to divide this by 6 to get y by itself. So negative 5 over 6x, and then 24 divided by 6 is going to be 4. Guys, that's it. Slope is going to be negative 5 over 6, and your y-intercept is going to be 4. Again, I'm probably going to have another help session either Thursday or Friday of this week. I would love for you guys to join me. It's always good to see you. We always talk about random stuff too, so it's always great to kind of talk to one another. And if you're stuck inside and you're bored, it's also a great way to kind of say hi to your classmates, which is always great. Again, hope you're having an awesome week. And like always, I hope I see you soon.